Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today's Monday and it's February the 9th, 2026. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently here on these YouTube streets. So you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. So feel free to like and to share this video. And don't forget to subscribe. Hi everyone. I did not post any videos last week, and that's because I was away from home and my laptop was acting crazy, so I had to wait until I got back home. And I know I've been promising you an update on recent arrests for child sex crimes in my area, but it's been a lot. But while I was researching that topic, I came across another police officer who was arrested. And I said, I wonder what else has been going on with police officers in North Carolina. So I decided to make a detour, just briefly. I wanted to see within a period of over 5 months how many officers were arrested and exactly what were they being arrested for. So let's go ahead and let's see what I found out. I'm going to start with January and work my way back to September. Let's go ahead and get started. And as we go through the respective information, I want you to keep in mind that I personally do not have a vested interest in any of the cases here. This is just information that's available in the public domain, and the majority of it came from the respective police department who were reporting on their own officers. I'll provide you with a summary here, and I'll identify some of my sources for you in the description box. And for the first case, we traveled to Greensboro, North Carolina, where the news headline read, former Greensboro police officer charged after firing shots into a house in Alamance County. And the date of this reporting was January the 25th, 2026. And it was reported that Morgan Hill, a 25-year-old Greensboro police officer, was arrested for a domestic violence incident on Saturday. According to a report, the incident took place around 1:30 a.m., and she had been charged with shooting into an occupied dwelling and causing injury to real property. She was due for court appearance on Monday. They say the matter is still under investigation and additional charges could be forthcoming, but right after she was arrested, she was fired from the Greensboro Police Department. And for the next case, we traveled to Gaston, North Carolina, where the news headline read, police officer arrested on RAPE charge involving girl under 13 years old. And the date of this reporting was January the 22nd, 2026. Roderick Lamar Howard, age 34, a police officer with the Gaston Police Department, was arrested following an investigation by the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. They executed a search warrant at two different locations, seizing electronic devices and found what they say was probable cause for arrest. They also stated that the possibility exists that additional charges might be forthcoming after forensic examination are completed. But for now, Officer Howard is charged with statutory RAPE of a child who's under the age of 13. Now, there's a question about bond. I saw one place where it states no bond and another place that states $750,000 bond. So I'm not really sure. What I would say right now is issue of bond is questionable. And the next stop is Charlotte, North Carolina, where the news headline read, Charlotte police officer arrested a third time in 1 year, and the date of this reporting, January the 22nd, 2026. Well, Officer Matthew Ryan Michael from the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. That's the individual we're speaking about. This is a very strange case, but this officer has been arrested 3 times within the past year, and to date he remains on administrative leave without pay. And keep in mind, he's still on the police force. He has not been disciplined in any way. It was reported he's been on an admin leave longer than a combination of the 12 other officers who were also on admin leave. Now, I want to attach a trigger alert here because some of the information is pretty sensitive, and I was pretty shaken up, I have to admit. So for the next few minutes, I want to let you know you just might find the information to be a little bit disturbing. So please exercise caution as we proceed. Now, I saw this news headline that really captured my attention, and it said most Charlotte police officers who face criminal charges lose their jobs, but not all. And they're referring to Officer Michael and the amount of trouble that he's been in, and they seem to imply that he's been given preferential treatment. Now, WBTV did a very detailed investigative report on Officer Michael. And since February, that's when he was first charged with some very disturbing incidences of child abuse, for which there was a delay to charge him. And then he was charged, and then the district attorney decided to drop the charge because instead of it being a misdemeanor, they wanted to refile it as a felony. But those filings never took place. All this time, he has been on administrative leave. And then in the fall, he was charged with cyber stalking, and then he was charged with or lately with violation of a protective order. Why still unprotected? Why still on unpaid administrative leave? But the fact is, he's never been disciplined, and they're saying that maybe he's being treated differently from other officers. And this is part of the data supporting the child abuse charges. And I want to begin by adding that trigger alert because of the sensitive nature of the information. This is exactly what was written. Apparently, there was an audio that was presented in court showing that this police officer had in fact been abusing this child. That could not be disputed. It was fact. But he said that was the only case. But the judge said they didn't believe it. Said the court does not find father's testimony that only the incident that was captured on audio occurred to be credible at all. It also says the court determined several separate incidents had occurred. Those included Michael grabbing his child by the neck and pinning him against a wall, throwing him on the ground, kicking him in the chest, and driving him after Michael had been drinking. This is all what was presented as far as pertaining to the child abuse case. And as I already mentioned, in addition to these two counts of child abuse, Officer Michael was also charged with cyber stalking. That was in the fall, either in September or October. And then he was arrested just a few days ago on January the 20th for violating a restraining order. This made the third arrest in a year. So after this latest arrest, he was given a $2,000 bond and released with an electronic monitoring. And with all this going on, folks are wondering why he has not been disciplined. They say that normally when Charlotte Mecklenburg police officers are charged with an offense, they quickly lose their jobs, but for reasons that are unclear, this matter pertaining to Officer Michael seems to be handled very differently. But I am choosing not to get any deeper into this. This case just showed up on my search for police officer who had been arrested, and now it's time for me to move on to the next case. So this next case here is really a sentencing, but it has to do with a Durham police officer, and it happened within the same period, and that's the way I'm including it. It's a case that was prosecuted by the Department of Justice, and the date of this reporting was January the 15th, 2026, and the news headline read, "Former Durham police officer sentenced for sexual assault." So 36-year-old former officer Rashad Taylor was sentenced to 37 months in prison for sexually assaulting a male victim during a wellness check. Reports say not only did he essay that victim, but he used a personal app, a secret app, on his personal phone to communicate with the victim and threaten the victim with arrest if that victim spoke out. Reports say he deleted the app after the incident. He also violated police guidelines by not activating his body camera during the interaction, although some of the incident was captured on his patrol vehicle dash cam. So he was charged with a multitude of offenses to include civil rights violation, kidnapping, and sexual assault, and he did plead guilty to one count of deprivation of rights and sexual misconduct. And he was sentenced to 37 months in prison, followed by 10 years of supervised release. And the next case is coming out of Newton Grove here in North Carolina, where the headline read, "North Carolina Police Chief Resigns After Being Charged with Child Sex Crimes." And this was an incident out of January 2026. We did an entire video. In fact, we did two videos on this story. It's about former Newton Grove Police Chief Greg Warren, who was initially charged with sexual exploitation of a minor for taking some photos of a young child while that child was sleeping. And then he was suspended. Then he resigned. Then we found out that he was being charged with drug trafficking and possessing a weapon of mass destruction, total bond $550,000. And he may have made bond by now, but at the time that I started this video, he was still in jail. And next, we traveled to Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, where the news headline read, Roanoke Rapids police officer arrested and charged with child exploitation offenses. And the date of this reporting was December the 5th, 2025. And this case is being prosecuted by the Department of Justice, the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of North Carolina. And for this case, we're talking about 31-year-old Officer Isaac Nielsen, who was arrested on December the 4th and charged with child sex crimes after the FBI confirmed that he had been sharing child pornography materials. And police say they had been investigating Officer Nielsen back in May. That's when they started, when they were when they confirmed through an IP address that he had been the one downloading child sex pictures and videos to someone he thought was a subscriber on a particular website. Now, this was a woman. They began chatting, and for some reason, their friendship established that he was comfortable uploading these child sex abuse materials to that person, but that person was really an undercover officer, and that person's supervisor reported the IP address, and that's how it was traced back to Officer Nielsen, and he was arrested for distributing child pornography materials, and he's now facing between 5 and 30 years in prison. But guess what I found? I found evidence that Officer Nielsen was one of the town's favorites, having recently been recognized as Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. That's correct. And on the first, the police department, Roanoke Rapids Police Department, on their Facebook page, they spoke about the award. And here's exactly what they had written. It says, "Thank you to American Legion Show Made Post 38 for recognizing several first responders tonight." That night was October the 7th, 2024. One of our own police officer, Isaac Nielsen, was honored as a Law Enforcement of the Year. Officer Nielsen is a 5-year veteran law enforcement officer from Utah and here in Roanoke Rapids. He is also a U.S. Marine who saw combat in both Afghanistan and Iraq. Most importantly, he is a remarkable husband and father. We are so proud of Officer Nielsen. He epitomizes our core values of service, honesty, innovation, excellence, leadership, and dedication. And here now are the pictures to support the write-up from the Roanoke Rapids Police Department, again on their Facebook page. Here you have Officer Nielsen standing right there, holding his plaque. And here you have a closer look at the plaque. If you notice to the right, it talks up it on the cover. It has a newsletter. It was from the First Responders Award and Recognition Ceremony. Here you have his name, Isaac Nielsen, and here you have the title of the award, Law Enforcement Officer of the Year, 2024. The next report came from Spencer, North Carolina, and that news headline read, School Resource Officer Charged with Sexual Exploitation of a Minor, and the date of this reporting was December the 17th, 2025. 35-year-old Austin Tyler Moore was a resource officer working for the Spencer Police Department. He was first investigated by the local police back in late October following a tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Police searched his home office and they searched his home, his office, and all of his electronic devices and found victims who were approximately 10 years old. He was arrested on 4 counts of third-degree sexual exploitation of a minor. He was issued a bond of $100,000, and as expected, he was fired from the police department. And next, we traveled to Belmont, North Carolina, where I saw this news headline. Belmont School Resource Officer arrested in McDonald's drive-thru line, and the date of that reporting was December the 5th, 2025. And according to that police report, they responded to a call around 12:30 a.m. that a man was unconscious in a drive-thru lane at a local McDonald's restaurant. And when police arrived, they found one of their own off-duty police officer, James Reagan. He was asleep in the driver's side of his own personal vehicle. Now, it was mentioned that he was a school resource officer and he was off duty at the time. But when they tested him, they found him to be impaired, so he was charged with a DWI. He was released on a $5,000 bond, and his next court appearance is scheduled for February the 5th, 2026. Also, he was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of an internal investigation. The next report came out of Raleigh, and the news headline read, Ex-Raleigh officer arrested for alleged sex crimes against women while on duty, and the date of this reporting was October the 3rd, 2025. So 28-year-old Tramel Cogdell, a former Raleigh, North Carolina police officer, he was arrested and charged with violating his oath of office when he exchanged sexual favors rather than giving someone a ticket. And this has to do with a DWI case. It was early in the morning. He was called to the scene. The woman was frantic. She had been drinking. She was afraid that she was going to go to jail. And Officer Cogdell solicited sex and did have sex with the woman and never did issue a ticket for that DWI. And if you wonder how the authorities found out, it's because a couple of weeks later, she shared that information with someone she knew close to her family, and they took it to the police, and that's how he was charged, and he was fired. But further evaluation of his phone showed a pattern that he had been contacting suspects and victims in the past, and in fact, he was later charged with violation of with soliciting prostitution involving several victims. He was released on a $30,000 bond, and his next court appearance is sometime later this month. I should also mention that the FBI has since opened a civil rights investigation into this former officer because they believe where there's smoke, there's fire. His behavior depicts a pattern, and they believe that other individuals are out there, other victims are out there, but they might be reluctant to come forward because of the nature of the offenses. So they are encouraging individuals who either had any contact with him or know of someone who've had contact with him to contact their office. And the next reported case came out of Cataract County here in North Carolina, and the news headline read, State Capitol Police Officer Charged in Cataract County. And this is an incident that took place at the campsite down at the beach, and the date of this reporting was October the 27th, 2025. According to reports, Officer Stephen Still was involved in some type of verbal altercation with another man at a campsite, during which threats were made. There was a lot of yelling, and he was screaming at the other gentleman and threatening that he would take the other gentleman out. He would kill him. And Officer Still did discharge his firearm more than once. Not sure whether it doesn't say that any humans were hit, but it did say he discharged his firearm more than once. And when police arrived, they quickly determined that Officer Still was intoxicated, and during the exchange, he did identify himself as being a Capitol police officer. So Stell was taken into custody. He was taken to Cataract County Jail and charged with the following offenses: going armed to the terror of the public, I guess that means terrorizing the public, communicating threats, injury to real property, discharging a firearm near a residence. A magistrate ordered the 56-year-old be held until he was sober, and then they obtained a written promise that he would appear on for those four misdemeanor charges. And I'm not sure. It's possible he's already had his day in court, but I could not find that information. And the next incident was reported by the Davison Police Department, where the news headline read, North Carolina EMT and officer accused of destroying evidence in Davison County child sex abuse investigation. And the date of this reporting was September the 29th, 2025. So this is a husband and wife team. He is 38 years old, Benjamin Myers. He is the EMT, and the woman, Jennifer Myers, was the police officer. And apparently, they were friends with the suspect in an ongoing child sex abuse case. And what they accused of doing, they accused of accessing government computers and obtaining information about this ongoing case, and then passing that information on to their friend, who was the suspect, which it resulted and key information being evidence, I should say, being destroyed. So he got a $1,500 bond, secured bond. Her bond was $3,000 secure bond as well, and she was terminated from the force. The next reported incident came from the Greenville Police Department, where that news headline read, "Former Greenville police officer facing multiple child porn charges," and the date of this reporting was September the 24th, 2025. So former police officer Dominic Oliveras was arrested and charged with engaging in sexual activity with a 16-year-old child and creating child porn. And apparently there was an ongoing investigation. He lied about it, and then they found the incriminating evidence on his phone. So he was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree sexual exploitation of a minor, 3 counts of second-degree sexual exploitation of a minor, 3 counts of third-degree sexual exploitation of a minor. When he appeared in court, he was assigned a bond of $150,000, and as expected, he was fired from the police department. And here was another incident involving an officer from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. The headline read, "CMPD officer charged with DWI after crash in Montgomery County." And that officer's name was Matt Wilson. So what I saw was that Officer Wilson was off duty. He was driving his own vehicle, and he was charged with driving while intoxicated and was currently on unpaid administrative leave pending an investigation into this incident. And then there was this incident reported by the Kings Mountain Police Department, where the news headline read, "Officer arrested after domestic incident in Cleveland County home." And the date of this reporting was September the 2nd, 2025. And that report states that 37-year-old former officer, now Edward Paget, was arrested and charged with domestic violence and assault with a deadly weapon. And according to that report, he and his girlfriend at their home, they were having some type of disagreements, and he told her why she could go unalive herself. He produced a GUN. She said, "Oh, it's not loaded." He opened the chamber, showing her that it was, and he said, "It's loaded now," and then he shot her in the thigh. And they waited quite a while before they even contacted 911, but then decided to head on out to the hospital before 911 actually got there. And then both of them agreed to say that she did it herself, but the truth eventually came out. He was arrested, he was charged, and his bond was set as $150,000. And finally, there was this case that I saw where it was reported on September the 1st, 2025. The headline is, "Aden police officer arrested for domestic violence and child abuse involving a shotgun." But it does seem as if this incident happened on the 31st, but it did hit the newspaper on September the 1st, which is the only reason why I'm addressing it here. Marquise Robbins was arrested on several charges. According to the report, they say that he butt-headed a female, busting her lip. This is someone he had been in a relationship with. He also discharged a firearm into the home, and he was facing several charges. And here are the charges that he faced: domestic violence, assault on a female, child abuse, 5 counts of discharging a weapon into an occupied property. Now, he was issued a bond, a secured bond of $2,500, which he was able to pay immediately, and he was released with electronic monitoring. But $2,500 just seems awfully low, but that was his bond. And so here you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a quick summary of the men and women in blue who violated their oath of office and faced consequences in our state of North Carolina. I may not have gotten all of them, but I'm sure this is a pretty good representation of the information that's in the public domain for the period under discussion from September to January. And I have to admit it was a bit scary, because these are the folks who should be protecting us. And it's a bit unsettling to learn that some of them are out here committing crimes. And But here's what I think. I think that maybe we need to stop putting these folks on a pedestal and having such high and sometimes unrealistic expectations of them. Because the truth of the matter is, they're humans just like you and I, and they are sometimes less than perfect creatures. And that's all I have for you right now, but feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video, and by all means feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks like just like this one, that's the notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.